Welcome to another episode of Mysteries Unknown. In tonight's podcast, I've got Terry with me. And Terry had one of the scariest Class A encounters with Bigfoot I have heard so far. He's a truck driver, and he was out one night driving his truck, and this Bigfoot creature came out of nowhere and ran right into his truck. He had to file a police report. It actually did physical damage to his truck. Really scary encounter, but before we get into that, I just want to say thank you again for being here. Thanks for the support. Without you guys, this podcast wouldn't happen. But let's just jump right into the story. Terry, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Well, man, I'm glad you're here. I'm excited to hear this story. So take us back to Powderly, Texas in 1995 and walk us through this encounter.
Okay. Myself and my ex-wife and her cousin, we had just got loaded in Longview, Texas with beer, and we were coming up to Durant, Oklahoma. Was where we lived at. As we were coming up through there, it was about 2:00 in the morning, and we were just on the Texas-Oklahoma line. And my wife and I were sitting in the front of the truck. Her cousin was in the back of the sleeper, which is where we sleep at. So she was back there asleep, and I happened to look up to my left, and I seen this big black thing come charging at me from across the road. It's a 2-lane road, so there's like a divider in between, stuff like that, and this thing was charging at me, and I was like, what's a black cow coming at me for? I couldn't figure out what that was, and then I realized it has 2 arms swinging, and I'm in a cab over truck, so I'm about 13 and a half, 14 feet off the ground, and I'm looking at this thing like it's just standing next to me. And then all of a sudden, it just come running up there, and it hit the side of my truck. Whenever it hit the side of my truck, mind you, I'm going down the road about 60 miles an hour. It hits the side of my truck and about turns me over. It was a tremendous impact. It hit the truck hard enough that it woke up her cousin up, and she got up here, was in the front seat, and I was trying to control the rig, and I felt it go all the way down the side of my truck. And I wasn't stopping because whenever that thing was right here by my window and I was looking at it face to face, yeah, I wasn't stopping. Everyone says in these later stories and stuff that they see red eyes. I didn't see red eyes. I seen yellow eyes, and I mean, they were as yellow can be, and it was looking straight at me as it hit. It was mad or was trying to run from something, and he just didn't time it right, or she didn't time it right, and she hit my truck. Well, I got it under control, and I kept on going. I didn't stop. Some people say you should stop. I didn't stop. I kept on going. I know that there was a truck stop about 10 miles down there on the left-hand side. It was a Choctaw truck stop where they just built a casino, and they had some truck parking. So I got in there and stopped, and we were all shaking, and we didn't know what it was. We thought we hit a human, or we hit a cow, or we hit something. I told him it wasn't no cow that I ever seen with 2 arms swinging. So they called the sheriff's department because I had blood and hair all the way down the side of my truck. And now, mind you, it's halfway up on the trailer, halfway up on the truck. So that thing would have to have been over maybe 8.5, 9 feet tall. It was big. I mean, it was big enough that it took a tractor trailer that was weighing almost 81,000 pounds and pushed me over and almost made me lose control. It was startling. It was a wake-up call because you couldn't, we're in a normal society, and some abnormal come out and said, hello, what are you supposed to do? So sheriff's department came out, highway patrol come out. They looked at my trailer. They went down, contacted the Texas Highway Patrol. They came down there. They didn't see nothing. They didn't see no blood marks, no dead cow, no nothing there. But they could tell by the skid marks that I had left on my truck, where it had hit me, that they could tell where it happened at. But like I say, they couldn't figure out what it was. But it damaged the whole side of my truck like I had hit a post or something like that. It had pushed it in and damaged all the way down the trailer. And I got back, and they unloaded the beer. My boss wanted to know what happened, and I told him. He just looked at me like I was crazy. In fact, he had me go and take a drug test just to make sure I wasn't on drugs. but then the sheriff's department verified my story, and it just went down on the annals of, oh my God, what was that?
Yeah, that's what you would call a life-changing experience for sure. And I know that you spend a lot of time out on the road, and you've been a truck driver for a long time, and you see a lot of different things. I don't think people understand how massive these creatures can get, being in a truck and it being right there at your, window looking right at you. What was going through your mind when that thing was right up next to you?
I was trying to rationalize it. I was trying to figure out what is this? What is this? But the only thing I could come up with, this is a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, because why else? I mean, it was ape-like, ape and human mixture. Its face, it was hard to describe it, but you seen it, its eye. You could, even as brief as I seen its eyes, you could tell there was intelligence there. There was because I think it was more surprised that I was there than it was, it intentionally hit me. But I think it was just surprised that, hey, there's a semi truck there. I don't know how you could miss me, but I was there, and it was startled.
It's kind of crazy, as intelligent as these creatures are, that they do that. I don't know why they do that, but coming from a former law enforcement, you never know what kind of calls you're going to get. And I can imagine hearing that call. That was probably not something they expected to hear that night. But what did you put down on the report when you told them what had happened, and how did they react?
At first, the officers thought I was crazy. The highway patrol and the sheriff's department both thought I was like, hey, we got a driver here. In fact, one of them wanted to do a field sobriety test on me to verify that I hadn't been drinking. And then again, they thought maybe he killed somebody. So, that was a mixture of suspicion and really more suspicion than anything. They didn't know what to think of it. But once they got to getting down there and they seen where I actually hit whatever this was, and then they got to looking at how tall that was, they realized it wasn't a human. In fact, the poor sheriff's deputy, he said, I don't know even how to write this up. I'm just going to put up as you hit an unknown animal hit you. And that was the only way he could do it. Even the highway patrol was like, he was just about ready to retire. He'd been an officer for 30 years, and he had no idea what it was either. He told me he had heard reports that there was Bigfoots in that part of the country, and he was laughing whenever he said it, because you can't be an official person and admit to something that is fictional.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. It's one of the things about that job is you just never know what you're going to see and what kind of call that you're going to get. And I can imagine out of his career, that's probably the strangest call he probably, ever received. But how did that change your life? I know that seeing something like that had to change your perspective, and being on the road all the time, I'm sure you looked a lot more often for something like that,
Oh yeah, I do all the time. As truck drivers, we're out here all hours of the night. We cover a lot of territory in a year, but I've seen a lot of weird things. A lot of fellow drivers have seen a lot of things, and they don't want to come forward because they don't want to be drug tested, or they just don't want to be people thinking that they're crazy. But yeah, a lot of us drivers, we see things that normal people don't see during the daytime and at nighttime.
Yeah, you guys see a little bit of everything, and appreciate what you do for our country, man, because without you guys, we wouldn't be able to operate. So very vital part of our country. So I appreciate what you do. I know that you had mentioned that you had some other encounters, and if you're open to it, I would love to hear about those experiences if you want to share them.
Oh, sure. Back in 1976, my wife, well, not my wife, excuse me, I was 6 years old, so I didn't have a wife, okay. But my mom and dad, my brother, my sister and her husband and their kids, her kid, we went out to Washington State. We'd moved out to near Wenatchee, Washington, and we were working in what they call a cherry orchard. And so there was a bunch of us camped in this cherry orchard. It was near a forest and near some mountains and things. And in the middle of the night, one night, there was something came down, and it knocked over several trees and rattled some trailers and stuff like that. It rattled our trailer. My brother got scared, came running inside along my sister and her husband and children. We all got into one trailer, and whatever this creature was came up there and was rocking this trailer like you would like a toy, back and forth, back and forth. And now my dad's not a person that got scared easily. My dad had been in Korea. He had been a machine gunner, so he had seen a lot of combat. And my dad never got scared. But that's the first time I've ever seen my dad get scared. Because, like he said, whatever that was big. Because next day they got out there and they couldn't believe that they seen gigantic footprints. I remember as a kid, I thought it was as big as my body. And my dad was like, nope, we're done. We quit. And everyone left the orchard.
Well, I don't blame you guys for leaving. That's something you really don't want to mess with. It's funny that you mentioned that. I've got a really good friend of mine, Daniel, who's been on the show quite a few times and had a lot of experiences with Bigfoot. And he had a real similar experience when he was a kid. This thing come up on a night when it was storming and, hit their trailer and knocked it off the foundation type of a deal. And it makes you wonder why they do these kind of things. What do you think it wanted that night?
I think it wanted to tell us it's his territory that we needed to leave. Just like a bear will mark its territory and stuff like that. I think they're just like that. I think they're marking their territory, letting you know, hey, this is my place. You're in my place. I don't want you here. I want you gone. I've heard stories like you. I've heard several stories about one lady up in Colorado that it attacked her house every night and was hitting on her house and stuff like that because it didn't want her there. I think they're very territorial. I think they range in many areas and stuff like that. And I think they just mark their territory. That's what if you get in their territory, they want to say, hey, yeah, you need to leave. This is my home.
That makes a lot of sense. I do think they're very territorial. And I also believe, this is just me talking, but I think if you see one, there's probably another one that's really close nearby. They seem to, run in groups. Maybe they're in the cave systems and work through that. I have no idea, but they're generally in packs, kind of family oriented, and things like that.
I'll tell you something I've heard. I don't know if you've heard the same story. I'm into native cultures and stuff like that. And I remember one of the natives, one of my friends in Yakima Indians, used to talk about their ancestors said that the Bigfoot and the Yakimas were one. That they used to live together, and they used to hunt together and stuff like that, and they used to have contests of strength and wrestling and stuff. And the Bigfoot, I guess, killed one of the guys that was wrestling, and it felt so bad about it. They separated, and that's the reason why you never see them. You always hear about them, but you never see them. But that's just an interesting mythology there that I find interesting.
It's an interesting topic, and there's a lot of things in God's universe we just don't understand, and a lot of different mysteries. And that's part of the intrigue for me, is the unknown aspect of it and trying to figure out some kind of answer. And with all that being said, and having those encounters, I would really, really be interested to know what your thoughts are on what Bigfoot is.
You know what I think it is? What my theory is, and it's just a theory, after watching several documentaries and things like that, I think it's a myth. I think it's a creature. I think it's something that's not a throwback to Neanderthal days or anything like that, but it is definitely a unique creature that we don't know nothing about. The only thing we know is that they got big feet and they're hairy and sometimes smell bad. I've seen I don't know. Do you watch Expedition Bigfoot very much?
I really kind of stay away from those kind of shows, but I have watched a couple of episodes, yeah.
One episode I watched really mystified me. It showed a picture. They had there was not like a cave, but a cliff behind them, and they were shining a large flashlight there, and it lit up the whole area, and you seen a Bigfoot creature walk across just like that, but it was just shadow. I don't know how that was even possible. I don't know if that was fake, but like I say, there's got to be something that they can do to blend in, camouflage themselves that we don't know nothing about. Because why can't we find them? We can always hear about them. We can see their remains and stuff like that, but we can't see them. I bet you within our lifetime, though, the way things are going, we might be able to see another one. And then whenever we do, we need to ask it, hey, what's up?
It does make you wonder, what that would look like if it ever comes to fruition like that, where we are able to actually interact with these creatures and it be documented where it brings light to it. And I don't know. There is no such thing as an expert. In my mind, when somebody comes on here and tells me they're an expert, I generally don't listen very well because there's no way you can be an expert with something like this. I personally think that they're, Nephilim, fallen angels, something like that, and that's just kind of the way I look at things through the biblical lens, but it is an interesting topic and I love talking about that. And man, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing those encounters with us.
I appreciate you letting me on here, and you have a wonderful day there.
Well, man, let me know if you see something in the future and make sure to be careful out there on the road. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Thanks for all the support. I couldn't do this without you. I really do appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thanks for just being here. If you guys have a story you would like to share with me, make sure to send it to me by email at video@jazzcreativear.com. And like I always say, stay prayed up. We'll talk to you in the next episode.